Hey Jeremy, what are the top
Hello.
three challenges of running DevRel today?
Oh, that's great. I think some of the challenges, say the ones that definitely come to mind, are that a lot of companies don't really know what they want or expect out of their DevRel team, and so they end up with a organization that uh, is out doing what they need to be doing to work with the developer community and to build relationships, but they don't have anything to really tie it back to within the company. And some of that's part of the company not really knowing what they want, but also it's the teams not knowing the right questions to ask, how to work within the communities, how to work within the company, and really kind of build those relationships and have a uh, things that are able to track. I think that's kind of the second piece too, is not tracking the um, metrics and results and such that they should be, and being able to tie that back to uh, what the company is wanting to do. And I think those are two of them. And I think third is the economic uncertainty. I think it ties into both of those. Is that companies look at DevRel organizations, and for the most part, they tend to be the they view them as big cost centers, which they are. DevRel is a cost center; it's not a an income stream, and so they say, well, we can just get rid of this because we don't really need it. We don't know what the value is. It's not been able to be uh, shared. It's not something that's been able to be propagated throughout the company, and so they drop them. And then those DevRel teams are left trying to find a new thing. And then that company realizes, oh wait, we just got rid of the people that directly impact our relationships with the community and how people know about us and find out about us and interact with us and how we interact with other companies and their teams. And then they go out and hire again, and it's just this continual cycle. So I think those are three of the challenges that immediately come to mind. I'm sure we could spend hours on finding others.
So, where should DevRel belong? Product, marketing, or somewhere else?
Um, it depends. Uh, it all has to do with the, where, what stage the company is in. If they are in, early stage trying to build things, then, let's, uh, you know, it might be better to be in the product organization. But if they've moved past the, let's stop. We now have a product, then they're better set in the marketing organization because that's closest to those that are, where the message is being spread. They can have the most impact on that. Sometimes it means that they might be, I've seen it in some engineering orgs. It kind of depends on, again, what the company is, what stage they are, how big they are, what's the goals, what does the company need, like all of that kind of fits into it. So I don't think it's a cut and dry like it should be long in one specific space. Um, I think anyone that says it shouldn't be in X space, other than it shouldn't be in finance, it shouldn't be in HR. Like those are obvious. It shouldn't be in sales. Like those are obvious ones you can say it shouldn't be. But anyone that says it shouldn't be in any of the other ones, I think they really are missing the point of what DevRel really is supposed to be. And it should be something that works with all the different areas of the company. Uh, and so it it's going to depend on what the company's trying to do and what the goal is. And that's something the DevRel leadership should also be very much attuned to, and understanding what are the needs and requirements, and help guide to where it should reside in the company.
What are the top three metrics we should measure to understand whether developer relations is working or not?
Again, I think that the answer is definitely it depends. Because if you are, just now building your product, having a metric for users, or how many people are starting to use your API, like that's not really going to fly because you're still building the thing. So it's got to be, you know, it needs to fit with where you are in the company and where the stage is. And so if you're really in that early stage of awareness and just trying to get people to know who we are and that, then there can be I'd say some top three metrics for that stage would be how many people are in your talks, how many people are starting to maybe GitHub stars, like that can be a good one. It has a very limited span of time that's a valid metric. But something like that, things that are telling you what people know about it, like how fast is your community growing. But eventually those metrics no longer matter because people already know about you. People already know where you're going. They already know about the um, span of time that people are kind of starting to know how to use your tool. And so then it becomes more like, okay, what's the impact that we're having? So that's something like, how many active members in the community, how many are returning, how many were there before that are still coming back, how long are people paying attention to the content you're reading or that you're creating, how long are they reading it, how long are they watching it, those types of things, and not, it ceases to be how many people are in my talk, and it becomes, how many people signed up, did the QR code that you should be having in your talks and in all your things, so you can track back to, how many people went to that link, how many people signed up from that, like those types of things that are showing now the impact that you're having once you've gotten your awareness. When you cease needing the vanity metric, and now you need to start showing that impact, those things are going to change. So I think those are three for each of those different stages.
What are the top three trends you are seeing in developer relations today?
Um, Layoffs, companies that make very short-sighted decisions uh, around the DevRel org, or or maybe it's the community org, depends on how the company's set up. Very short-sighted uh, about, hey, this is how we're going to be able to continue to deliver a good product to developers and how to get them to use it, and then they go and get rid of the DevRel team. I think that's one trend. It's a negative trend, and we consistently see it, and then those companies go, oh, and they go back and hire again. I think another trend that we're seeing is, AI is definitely there. I think it yeah. Let's just say it's a trend. I think there's a lot more to dive into that, but we're starting to see that more in DevRel. And I think another trend that we're seeing in DevRel, is DevRel starting to kind of be considered within organizations as potentially developer experience, as opposed to just DevRel. Like DevRel actually has more impact. Dev experience itself can be something that's overarching across a company that allows for DevRel and dev community and things to grow and to actually build a whole lot more impact than they ever have before. So I think those are some trends I'm starting to see.
Mhm. How has developer outreach evolved in 2024?
I think it's a great question. I'd say a mix of having to balance some of those muscles that we kind of stretched and exercised and grew around virtual, and having to do a lot more online content than the industry had to do for the first time in a while. Like those of us that have been around for a while, like we used to do online content and work a lot in forums and things like that. But I think the pandemic and the COVID time really kind of showed us we had to get back to that. So I think that's kind of how that has kind of evolved there, and having to leverage that. But also in person is another skill that we've got to relearn, and I think we're starting to see that that outreach, and it has to be a lot more impactful. I talked earlier about the having impact metrics. It's the impact, the outreach that you do has got to be have a lot of impact. It's also got to be able to be tracked. You got to be able to build the right metrics around that. You got to be able to track it and track it all the way through. Collaborate with your sales teams, collaborate with your marketing, communication teams, and start to really figure out how to really track those interactions you have all the way through so that you can start to show the value of the outreach activities you're doing. I think those are some things I'm starting to really I've been, I hate to say preaching, but been yelling from the mountaintops for a while. We've got to get back to that. We've got to understand it, and I'm starting to see a lot more people recognize the need for that.
I am a startup. When should I hire my first developer relations person?
Um, I want to say it depends, primarily because it depends on, like, when you say you're a startup, if you're, if you don't have a product yet, you don't need a DevRel person. You need a product marketing person that's really going to help you shape your message and going to help you understand where get that product market fit. That's not something that DevRel is really going to be able to help you with. You've got to have like that. I see more companies should be spending their first hire outside of engineering in a product marketing set. Plus, when you're, early stage, a lot of things, especially with engineering teams and such, you're already kind of in the community. You probably have a forum that you kicked off to kind of get your beta users and such. And so you're already kind of doing some of the base of that because you're small, you're agile enough, or hopefully agile enough, that you can make some changes and you can have a smaller team. So your engineering teams, your CTO, your CEO are already doing a lot of the outreach type of things and doing a lot of the feedback and a lot of probably doing some writing, and they're doing, maybe even they're giving some talk. But as you start to grow and get past that and start to understand, okay, here's our product market fit, then you can start to look at bringing a developer relations type of person on. But too many companies get told especially by their VCs, that, oh, you need to go hire that your first non-engineering hire needs to be DevRel. And time again, those dev advocates, I've had many of them have been close friends or still are close friends. They get burnt out because they're asked to do the product market fit set. They're asked to do all of the marketing, all of the content, all of the building out the marketing flow, plus do the talks, plus do the sample applications, plus do the documentation. There, too many things get thrown on a one person that is primarily should be tasked with working with the developers directly to get them to grow their adoption, not to do all of the other things. And so they then hurt themselves. Those people get laid off, and then they go and find somebody else that's willing to do it, and until they've grown enough that they can finally hire the right organization. So yeah, I'd say it really depends, but most of the time, my answer is going to be no. Do not hire a DevRel as your first non-engineering hire. It should be a product marketing specialist.
Agree, completely agree. I am a startup. I want to build my developer community. Please recommend me some tools, tactics, techniques that I should use.
Yeah, if you're open source, definitely make use of GitHub. GitHub has some great ways with discussions and how you can get really close to those that want to kind of contribute to what you're doing. I would say you definitely want to look at a forum, something like Discourse. Highly recommend as much as you can do out in the public as possible, which is what a forum really gives you, that so that it complements your documentation, it complements your your blog posts, because your content, the SEO kicks in so that your anything happening in your forum is now visible, so people can see the conversations. Too many people go, oh, we're going to do a chat and we're going to go Slack or Discord, which I'm not saying those are bad, but all of those conversations are close to the public, and all of that good information about how to use your tool and how to troubleshoot it, that is gone because nobody can access it. And then you raise a lot of the support tickets and all that. So you need to have a forum. So I think looking at Discourse has got to be a first thing. I think you can look at some chat platforms early on, like things like Discourse have chat built in that can be helpful. And I think you need a good tool that tracks your how your community is growing. There's things like, Orbit or Common Room or, things like that. And then I think you definitely want to, uh, from there, I think you're definitely making use of, the social activities. But my biggest thing with talking to companies about how they grow their community is go to where your community is. If they're at meetups, you need to be there. If they're online, you need to be there. They might be in both. You need to be there. And so it's really like figure out where they're at and then figure out how you can integrate them into what you're doing, and that you can integrate into what they're doing. Find other other peripheral communities that you can get involved in that can help grow yours as well.
What are the top 3 reasons you have seen developer relations fail?
Um, Not aligned with the business, uh, and not so the first one's not being aligned to the business and not tied to what the business recognizes is that they need to be successful. I think the other one is uh, unrealistic expectations placed on the team, um, either because people don't understand what DevRel is supposed to be, or just not leadership has not figured out what they want from it. So I think those are 2 of them. I think the third one is, um, gosh, I'd say probably the top third one. I could come up with probably a few others, but I think the top third would be, uh, the company. It wasn't the right time. The company brought somebody in too early, and they're just spinning their wheels, or they were the only one doing that and 5 other things. And it's either you're going to do one thing well or 5 things bad. And so I think those are the top 3 that I've seen of why they tend to fail. There's plenty more, but those are probably the top 3.
I am not of engineering background and I want to get into developer relations. What is your advice for me?
So if you're not of an engineering background, I think there's a lot of different ways to get involved. Look at, if you've been working with communities, there's a lot of people that have done a lot of community work, like community management type of things that can easily translate into developer communities. You don't have to have an engineering background. I think you do have to have an engineering aptitude, or a technical aptitude is probably a better way of saying it. That should be something you should continue to kind of flex that muscle, but it's not something that you necessarily are going to um, like have immediately. So I think that's one thing, and is just kind of, yes, you can get involved. You don't have to. I think if you're going to be a dev advocate, you need to have some type of technical aptitude, and something that can be translated into what the company is doing, that you can apply that. You don't need to be a top engineer. You don't need to be somebody that spent 15 years in tech, but you do need to have a technical aptitude for the most part, and that's going to largely depend on what the product is, what the company's wanting. If they already have people building like internally, building sample apps and doing that kind of technical things, then you can focus more on the content side, and maybe on giving some talks around processes and principles, and you can learn and grow that muscle so that you have a little bit more of a technical awareness of the tool and how it integrates. But from the very beginning, yeah, I don't think you have to be an engineer, but you do need to have the technical aptitude.
I am a developer advocate, and because of so many tasks on my plate, I had to context switch. I lose my flow. What is your advice to manage my life?
You're not alone. Um, that's uh, it's a very difficult question because there's so many of us that deal with it and have to deal with it in different ways. Sometimes it's you have to lean into lists. Sometimes it's you have to make use of the tools you have. Asana, tracking, set timers to make sure that you take a few minutes to take a break. There's a lot of different ways. I think it definitely is like um, consult people you know that are also doing it, see what they do. But I think for me, it's making those lists, keeping track of the thing that I'm doing. If I need to context switch, take 5 minutes or less, even just a minute. Write down where you were at and what you were currently working on, and that way you have something you can come back to. And even if it's just take a screenshot or take copy and paste a link and put it somewhere, like just so that you can come back to it. I think that's an important piece. But context switching, especially within DevRel, is a very real thing, and it has to, it just is. You're just going to constantly be looking at something different, and you have to find what works for you. Ask questions.
How is AI changing developer relations today?
I think it's making a lot of people. I'll start with the bad side of it. A lot of people are using it to do their job, and what I mean by that is just letting it create content and calling it a day. Um, doesn't work. For the most part, AI doesn't, unless you've spent a long time training it. It doesn't have the context of what you're trying to do and what the tech is you're trying to talk about and all those specific nuances. And so you end up creating content that is watered down, not really applicable, doesn't help you learn, doesn't help you grow, and it's just dialing it in, phoning it in, and just being done with it. And I think that's made things really difficult. I think one of the positive side of it is it does allow for, I think, DevRel and content creators to start looking at new ideas, look at some different ways of presenting information. Once you have an idea of what you want to present and a core construct of it, then use that to kind of get a feel for maybe a different way of presenting something. I think that is really interesting for AI. I think some of the different things like the ways that we can do visuals, I think is a lot more interesting than it ever has been. Illustrations and stuff for the things that we're trying to do can really capture people's attention. So I think that's the good and bad of it. And I think we definitely need to focus a lot more on that for sure.
Today in 2024, how do you think developer marketing is adapting to these changes in developer relations or community management?
I'm not so sure that it is. Um, Developer marketing still has been for a long time a different focus. Um, Not saying it's a bad focus, but it's just different. And marketing is at its core is less about relationships and is more about quantity. The quantity of people viewing things, the quantity of signups, the quantity of scans at a booth. Those are all very like quantitative, but they're not really qualitative. DevRel at its core is more about the qualitative than the quantitative. And so there's just a different focus there. And it's DevRel relationship is built into the word. And so it's a lot more one to one or one to small, whereas marketing is very one to many. I call it kind of the shots on goal. Eventually, you get 25 shots on goal. Hopefully, one of them is going to come through. Uh, that's just what marketing is. And I know I'm vastly oversimplifying, but it is just a different focus. So I don't know that dev marketing itself exists in a way that can kind of take over what DevRel does, but I think they could and should work very closely together. And I think that whether we start calling it dev marketing or not, I think is a conversation for another day. But I think it is something that they are two different focuses, and I think people need to recognize that more.